Everybody, can you hear me? Back there, can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? There's more seats up here if you guys want to sit up in front. No, yes? You want to stay up there, okay. Okay. I was about to speak. Okay. Everybody can hear me? Oh, yay, look how quiet it is. Hi, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It really, really means a lot to us. Just so you know, about a year and a half ago, a few of us got together, distressed about the state of our country, which I know you all share. We realized that rather than complain to each other, we needed to do something about it, and now. We are a group of strong and independent women, and we knew we could make a big difference. The 8 of us started meeting with senators, representatives, and governors trying to find the perfect direction for us to go. After a meeting with Congressman Ted Lieu, we realized that we needed to focus this cycle on the congressional races right here at home in California and try to help flip this House. Ted's leadership, enthusiasm, and passion for restoring our country really fired us up, and we felt and we felt that helping him and his committee support all the other candidates, as well as get out the vote, rang true to our group. But before Ted actually comes up and speaks here, let me first introduce you to this amazing and beautiful, talented, and diverse group of women that we secretly call the Coven. Elsa Collins, who is not here, unfortunately, she's receiving her husband is receiving the ring in the Golden State Warriors. So, but anyway, Susie Schuster-Eisen, where are you, Susie? Chrisette Hudlin, Laura Schell, Dana Walden, Laura Wasser, Lauren Weitzel, who unfortunately could not be here, and me. You guys worked so hard and for this cause, and we raised over $600,000 tonight. So far, it's still coming in, I have to say. I'm so proud to be on this journey with you guys all, and I know that this is just the beginning of what this group can do together. Now, I want to welcome Congressman Ted Lieu, who has really lit a fire under everyone in the state and country to get out and vote this midterm election. Thank you for your inspiration.
Good evening. So I've been fighting this Republican-controlled Congress for over a year and a half, and let me first say, it's always a thrill when I'm in front of normal, rational, kind people. So thank you, Laura and Casey, for opening up your beautiful home again. You've done so many events for the cause, really appreciate it. And to the 8 amazing women that helped put this together. You should all give them a big round. We have some amazing members of Congress here, so I'm going to introduce them. We've got Lucille Rouda, the first Mexican-American woman ever elected to Congress. We have Congresswoman Judy Chu, the first Chinese-American woman ever elected to Congress. We've got Congressman Pete Aguilar, who came in with me during the freshman class. Is Pete, are you still here? We've got Congressman Jimmy Gomez, who was recently elected to Congress. Jimmy, are you here? And then Congressman John Garamendi was here earlier as well. So I want you to understand how important it is that we flip the House. Because if we flip the House, then Lucille Rouda, who's on the powerful Appropriations Committee, gets to make sure we get funding for all our transportation projects in Southern California. Make sure that we get enough security for the Olympics, make sure that we get all the funding we need across America. That's why it's so important. Congresswoman Judy Chu is on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee. We flip the House, we get Donald Trump's tax returns in January. And then Congressman Pete Aguilar is on the House Oversight Committee. We flip the House, we can actually do effective oversight and make sure there's no more corruption in the administration. So that's why we need to get people out. So we also had some amazing people who stepped up as co-chairs and sponsors. So we have a number of people, I'm going to read them off for you. We have Kelvin Davis, Skip Paul and Dan Fletcher, Martha and Bruce Karsh, Joe Ravitch, Cheryl and Haim Saban, Carrie and Michael Sachs, Nicole Avant and Ted Sarandos, John Vane and Ellen Goldsmith Vane, Laird Bishop and Gary Yale. So those are our co-chairs. Give them a big round of applause. And then we have a number of hosts. We have Paul and Amy Glavin, Megan and Peter Chernin, Ari Emanuel, Brandon Gardner, Jake Kasdan, Ahmed Khan, Katie McGrath, and Chris Miladandri. Oh, these are really big letters. They think I know. We have some additional hosts as well. Diane Paul, Julia Franz, and Chris Silberman, Bree Simon, Ryan Carla, and Hannah Taylor for Carla. So let's give them another round of applause. And we're going to end this list with our sponsors tonight. Carl and Susan Schaefer Albert, Skip Brittingham, Joseph Early, Howard Kurtzman and Sharon Klein, John Landgraf, Rick Leslie and Laura Arnest, Mikey and Spencer Newman, Ann Russo, Dr. Daniel Schaefer, and Chris Williams. So let's give them a big round of applause. So last year, my colleagues elected me as the vice chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I'm responsible for the Western region, which is Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. I keep trying to get them to send me to Hawaii. But most of our target seats are in Nevada, California, and Washington State. And then, very excitingly, our candidate in Alaska just came out with a poll showing her within the margin of error. So we're doing very well. But California is where we have the most number of targeted districts. I lose count. I don't know if it's like 8 or 9 because Republican members keep getting indicted. But as of right now, you have these amazing tropic candidates behind me. I'm going to give you a national overview and then we'll come down to California. So nationally, we're targeting about 100 seats. When the DCCC announced that, folks thought, oh, you're crazy. Then we won the Connerland district in Western Pennsylvania, a district Donald Trump had won by 20 points. And folks thought, okay, maybe you're not so crazy anymore. So of these seats, there's 3 categories of them. The first category, if we do one thing, we win those seats, if we energize our base. We need to flip 23 seats. It just turns out that there were 23 seats that Hillary Clinton won in 2016, in which a Republican currently holds that seat. Then the second category of seats, we need to energize our base and then win a majority of the independents. And then the last category of the hardest, we have to energize our base, win a majority of independents, and then make sure moderate Republicans are horrified enough to either not vote or vote for our candidate. That was the Connerland district, and we won it. Every candidate here behind me has a better performing Democratic district than that district. So our view is we can win that, we can win every seat up here. So you all saw those very traumatic Kavanaugh hearings. And what they did, first of all, he should not be in the Supreme Court. But politically, what happened is it amped up the enthusiasm on both sides of the aisle. So both Democrats and Republicans are now much more energized, but more so on the Democratic side. What that means is for districts where we have a lot of suburban voters that are in blue states, we're doing even better. So those districts on the bubble, we're doing somewhat worse, which means we got to win these districts in California. We have to win these districts in blue states in order to flip. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen on election night. We're going to win about 15 seats pretty easily. Then the remaining 60 or so, sort of within reason, we're going to lose some by 300 votes. We'll win some by 500, lose some by 1,000. But because there's so many shots at it, I believe we'll net 23. But we could also lose 50 seats by 1 point. We could win 50 seats by 1 point. So for those of you who are maxed out, you're super awesome. If you haven't yet, think about setting to these candidates, because every dollar counts. And when you give to a candidate, so when you're giving to this joint fundraising committee, it's going directly to them. they can spend money much more efficiently. When you give them $1,000, it's like the DCCC or the RNCC spending $5,000 because they can buy TV ads at about 1/4 to 1/5 the price. So that's why your money is so important. And here in California, we have these amazing candidates. I'm going to start from north to south. So the first candidate is Jessica Morse. She is running against Congressman. So we recently added her to what's called the red or blue list of the DCCC. And if you added to that list, what it means is two things. One, you didn't kill puppies as a little kid. We vetted them, they have outstanding backgrounds. And second, they've been able to organize, raise funds, and run effective campaigns. So Jessica was recently added to that list. She's running against Tom McClintock, who is, I think the best way to say he's a little off. I served with him in both the state legislature as well as Congress. He's incredibly conservative. And she had a poll that came back recently that basically shows if she gets her message out, she'll win the district. So I'm going to have Jessica come up and explain her.
All right, who's ready to flip the house? It is a delight to be here. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for hosting. My district, I would imagine a lot of you have a good stake in it. How many of you guys love Yosemite? Great. How many of you guys love Lake Tahoe? How many of you guys love water? Okay. So I will be representing the Sierra Nevada of Northern California and the east suburbs of Sacramento. And I'm actually 5 generations from this district. We still have the original homestead land and even have a gold mine claim that my great-grandpa won at a poker bet. And I love this community. I have the distinction of having hiked the entire district on the Pacific Crest Trail, about 500 miles. And you know who never hiked the district? Tom McClintock. He's actually a state rep from Southern California who never moved to our community and doesn't live in our district and doesn't understand us. And he consistently votes against the district. He's the guy who blocked fire prevention funding. He voted against the Violence Against Women Act. He votes party line over 95% of the time. And it feels like with our community, 0% of the time. And our community is upset and outraged and hungry for change. They're demanding a public servant, and that's who I am. I spent 10 years all over the world with the Defense Department, the State Department, and the U.S. Agency for International Development. I was on the ground in Baghdad at the height of the war and saw what our troops go through, and also was tired of seeing short-sighted decisions from people who were only looking through a political lens, and then we had to clean up the mess. And that's why I thought, you know what, we should start electing people with the mentality of a public servant rather than the narrow mentality of a politician. And so, yeah. And I'm grateful that we're surrounded by elected public servants here tonight, like Congressman Liu. And so we decided I thought, you know, this change needs to happen. I wonder who's going to do it. And then in 2016, when then candidate Trump came out and said he was going to give nukes to Saudi Arabia, I said, not on my watch. And I had studied nuclear nonproliferation as my master's. And so I decided to drop my life and join the presidential campaign. I worked as a field organizer. And I thought, you know what, I can do this politics thing. And then when Tom McClintock came out in lockstep with Trump in my home district, I said, this guy's got to go. And so we stepped in, and I started with a listening tour of the district. I went to all 10 counties, and I met with local officials and CAL FIRE chiefs and hospital boards and local county supervisors, and I listened. And what I heard were innovative solutions to the challenges we face. And I heard a consistent complaint that we've been missing a partner and an advocate in Washington to break down the red tape barriers and bring resources back to our district. And I thought, you know what, the issues we face are not partisan. A forest fire is not asking if you're a Democrat or a Republican before it burns down your home. And when Tom McClintock votes against our health care or called people with pre-existing conditions, called that a nuisance, when he took away health care from 300,000 people in our district, I thought, you know what, it's time for a change. And so we mobilized this community around community-based issues, and it's working. You know, we had a 183% increase in Democratic voter turnout in our primary. It was one of the highest in the entire state. That dropped McClintock 12 points in a district where he hasn't budged in a decade because he hasn't been challenged in a decade. And just this last quarter, we outraised Tom McClintock by over $1 million in one quarter. 4 full-time field offices all over the district. People are coming out across the political spectrum. We had Dolores Fuerza come and mobilize Latino voter outreach, and then we had Steve Schmidt come and mobilize Republican voter outreach. So we are getting people across the spectrum on board, and our community is mobilized, hungry, and ready for change. And so I am so grateful to have all of your support. It is all hands on deck, sprint to the finish. We have this guy in our sights, and with your help, we're going to win. Thank you.
I want to announce one more co-chair, which is Patrick Whitesoe in Endeavor Action. I also, on a personal note, want to thank Endeavor for extricating themselves from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
The next candidate is TJ Cox. He is a perfect fit for the district in the Central Valley. His opponent in the district, it's close, except if you look at what happened in 2016, Hillary Clinton won that district, or one of the largest margins of any district in America. TJ is going to tell you why he's going to take it back.
Thank you so much, Ted. Yes, I'm TJ Cox, the Democratic candidate for Congress in the 21st Congressional. And the 21st goes from Fresno down to Bakersfield. It's one of the absolute poorest districts in America. Has anybody seen the movie McFarland USA? Yeah, fantastic movie. I mean, so it just embodies, the entire district. Very Latino, relatively impoverished, but characterized by grit, determination, and community. And I can tell you that there is no district in America where flipping their congressman is going to have more profound difference in the lives of the people actually there. Over 50% of the families rely on Medicaid for their health care access, and this guy votes to get rid of that. Over 85% of the kids rely on SNAP to put food on their tables. All right? I'm the son of immigrants. My dad came from China, my mom from the Philippines. They lived the American story. They became very proud, naturalized citizens. They worked hard. Growing up, my mom was always telling me, "Muktrabaho kita," which in Tagalog, any Filipinos out there? That means get to work, all right? And that's what I've been doing. I spent a career in engineering, but right now, I lead what's called a community development entity. And we make strategic investments in the things that make a difference in the people's lives in the district. Building community health clinics, job training facilities, affordable housing, and clean energy plants. But what really guides me more than anything else, I get, is a sense of social and economic justice. And I get that from some very strong women. I mean, I think we know that women are going to make the difference. They made the difference tonight, did they not? Right? And I take my cues from my mom. My mom, we spent a career with the EEOC, and she took her cues from my grandmother. One of our favorite family stories is in the Philippines, right after World War II, my grandmother took it upon herself to open the first and only social club for African American troops in Manila. I mean, she saw that they were being discriminated against, no place to go after they got off work or to relax or anything, and she wasn't going to put up with it. She was going to do something about it. Just like we're all going to do something with what's going on in America today, are we not? Yeah. So, but I can tell you, the one person who I really take my inspiration and my direction from is my wife, Kathy Murphy. She's not here tonight. She's on service as a pediatric intensive care physician serving the kids in the valley. And what happened a couple of years ago, Kathy went in early on Saturday morning. She came home from work late Sunday night. She takes a shower. She goes to her desk and she types up a letter. And she comes to Ben and says, "Hey, I'd like you to read this." She gives me this letter and I read it and it basically says, "I quit." I think, whoa, you're the only one making any money. But what had happened is she had spent all weekend long working on a poor child that just had a couple limbs amputated. All right? Why? Because a week or so before, couldn't get treatment for a simple case of pneumonia. That progresses into sepsis, septic shock, organ failure, and then this terrible tragedy of this poor kid and the family. And so she said, "Listen, I can only do so much at the bedside. I need to do something on the policy side up front because the politicians aren't doing what they need to do." And so she took it upon herself to take a sabbatical and get a master's in public health in order to do something on the policy side. And she was all ready to go and start working on public health policy. But what happened? 2016. And it wasn't an enhancement of our policies, our healthcare policy, it was an assault on those. And so about this time, she came back to bed, gave me a kick and said, hey, we're gonna do something about it, you're gonna run for office, right? And that's where I find myself today. And I can tell you, and then the 21st, we have a fantastic opportunity. As Ted said, there's one thing I want you to remember tonight before you leave. In the 21st, it's simple, 16, 17, and 18. This is a district that Hillary Clinton won by 16 points. The Democrats have a 17-point registration advantage. And in 2018, with your help, we're going to take it back. We're going to take back the seat. We're going to flip the House. We're going to restore a little common sense, integrity, and decency to our Congress. Thank you.
The next candidate is also from the Central Valley. He's Andrew Jans. He is a perfect fit for this district as well. He is a district attorney. I had the opportunity to visit his district because he's running against Levin. So Levin hadn't done a town hall since 2010. So I went up to his district and did one for him. And I had this amazing ability to see the incredible enthusiasm in Andrew Jans' district. And with your help and support, those voters are going to turn out and then Andrew's going to win. So Andrew, why don't you come on?
Hello, LA. Great to be here today. I don't say this lightly, but it's always good to get out of Fresno every now and then. Don't tell anybody in my district that I said that, and if you're recording this, turn your cameras off and delete that file. My name is Andrew Jans. I am running for Congress against Levin, and I am here to report to you that the people of the Central Valley are ready for a change. This man has been in Congress for nearly 2 decades. Has done little or nothing for the Central Valley. We know what he's done in Washington. He's been basically Trump's right-hand man in the House of Representatives. If you've been following the news, Trump wanted to give Levin the Medal of Honor award, I think last week. And that really shows where his loyalties lie. He was recorded at a fundraiser in Washington a couple months ago talking about his role on the House Intelligence Committee. As chairman, he believes his job is to protect the President of the United States. That's not his job. If you read the Constitution, you know that's not his job. He's supposed to be a check on the executive branch. And so every day we go out there and make sure that this is his last term in Congress. And let me tell you how this is going to work. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, we are targeting voters in our district that have a history of not participating in the process. And these are young voters, these are Latino voters, and these are voters that feel that they have been forgotten over the years. And when I got in this race back in April of 2017, we were behind. We were behind 36 points. He has never been under 60% approval rating in the district. And so now for the first time, he is at 49%. And so that is a big deal in our district. An incumbent and the House Intelligence Committee chairman. So we're working every day to make sure that this is his last shot at Congress. And I can tell you that I am too a son of immigrants, and my parents came to this country in search of a better life for themselves and for their children. And here in America, if you work hard and you do your part, you can accomplish anything. And that's what's allowed me to go from working minimum wage jobs in high school and in college, helping my family make ends meet, to being a local prosecutor, one of the highest ranking law enforcement officials in the Central Valley. And so I'm so proud of my record. I am proud of what my family and I have been able to accomplish. And my story is the story of millions of Americans all across this country. And that is really at jeopardy right now. And so wouldn't it be great come next year to have Adam Schiff be the House Intelligence Committee chairman, bringing forward Levin as a non-member of Congress without congressional immunity to be interviewed by this House panel. This is what we're working towards, folks. So with your help, we're going to be able to win back the House and take back our country. Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce the next candidate the following way. Many years ago, I figured out that anyone can do my job. What you want to do is help Walmart. Because what will happen is these large corporations or interest groups, they will write the bill for you. They will lobby all your colleagues on your side of the house. Then they'll get it passed. They go to the other side, lobby everyone, they'll get it passed. Then they will lobby the executive branch, get it signed into law. And you don't have to do very much. But let's say you want to help someone who's homeless, right? How many homeless people do you know have a super PAC behind them? Or have any lobbyists that help them? Or even know how to go talk to a member in Congress? The answer is exactly zero. Well, Katie Hill, for most of her career, worked as executive director of a homeless organization to help homeless people. She's running for all the right reasons. She's going to beat Steve Knight, and she's going to come up and tell you why she's going to beat him.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful event. I'm so excited to be here. And I see so many faces of people who have been helping me for a long time throughout this primary, and I really want to say thank you. How many of you have seen me speak before? I know it's a lot. Okay, cool. How many of you have knocked doors in our district? A lot. Awesome. How many of you want to see LA County be completely blue? All right. So I'm running against Steve Knight, who's the last Republican in LA County, and we're going to fix that. A little bit about my background. I'll keep it super short since so many of you know me. But I am the daughter of a police officer and a nurse. My dad's a cop right near here in Beverly Hills. And my dad's a lifelong Republican. He has never voted for a Democrat until he voted for me in June of this year. But the good news is not only is he voting for me, but he's getting every one of his friends to vote for me and all of his golf buddies as well. So here's the deal. We are near the end. I have been in the race since March of 2017. So I like to say I could have had 2 kids by now. Not quite there yet. But anyway, this has been a campaign that was built from the bottom up. In an organization like PATH, you're working on organizing people from the bottom up. You're working on grassroots donations. The way that we got major legislation passed was by getting people to vote who'd never voted before, but not by big corporations or special interests who were funding our campaigns, but by true people, regular people who want to see a change. And that's how we built this campaign. So now we have over 25,000 individual donors, and this most recent filing period, we outraised Steve Knight by 9 times. 9 times the amount that we raised. And that's because of all of you guys. But that's not enough. And the reason that's not enough is because we're not up against his money. We're up against the Koch brothers, who have put millions of dollars into the race. We're up against Paul Ryan's Super PAC, who is literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every single week against me, using ads like calling me immature. My favorite part about that ad is it's an image of me smiling and laughing wearing a tank top. So if you ever smile or laugh or wear a tank top, you're too immature to run for office. But the best part is that we have the ground game to win this race. We have, just this past weekend, we knocked on 45,000 doors in a single weekend. 45,000 doors with almost 1,000 volunteers who were organized over the weekend. So because of that, we are going to change this district. We're going to make LA County all the way blue, but we don't want to just win by a little. We need to win by a lot, because this is a message that we have to send to the entire nation, that districts like ours are no longer Republican. They are districts of the people. We're sending candidates that are about real people. We are sending candidates who are going to represent young people like my generation, who right now hold 5 out of 435 seats in Congress, even though we're the largest voting bloc in the entire country. We're there to represent women who only hold less than 20% of the seats in Congress, despite the fact that we have seen over and over again in these past 2 years how much in jeopardy our rights are. This is bigger than this district. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than all of us here in LA. This is about the fate of our entire country and about the message that we are going to send in the generations to come. So thank you so much for all of you're doing. Let's finish this thing out. Thank you.
One of the exciting things about this cycle is we have a large number of veterans that are running, actually a historic number. I previously served on active duty. I'm still in the reserves, and it's very inspiring to see all these veterans running. I remember talking to Chrissy Houlihan, who's running in Pennsylvania. She's going to win, by the way. And I asked her early on, why is she running? And she said, I don't recognize the country that I served. And so We have these veteran candidates that do phenomenally well. Gil Cisneros is a veteran. He is running in CD39. And when Ed Royce saw that Gil Cisneros was running, what did Ed Royce do? He retired. But now Ed is facing a strong opponent. It is a district that is very close. And with your help, we'll put him over the top. And so Gil, why don't you come up and thank you. Thank you.
How's everybody doing tonight? You can do better than that. Are we going to put the house? Are we going to bring sanity back to government? Great. I'm Gil Cisneros, and I am running for Congress in the 39th Congressional District. That encompasses northern Orange County, the cities of Fullerton, Brea, Buena Park. But then we move up into eastern LA County, Walnut, Diamond Bar, Hacienda Heights, those areas. And then we even give us a little bit of San Bernardino County as well. So it's a pretty good sized district. You know, my life has really been about service. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my father, who was a Vietnam veteran. My grandfathers were World War II veterans. And I joined the Navy right out of high school. But I was very fortunate that I met a chief petty officer who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself yet. And he said, I want you to apply for this program. And that program led to a Navy ROTC scholarship. So I did exactly what the chief told me. I applied, I got accepted. And 5 days after graduating from high school, I went off to boot camp. And then right after boot camp, I actually went just right back to school, except it was in the Navy. And my job in the Navy was to basically study math, science, and English. And I did that for a year and a half. And that program changed my life. It gave me opportunity through education that I never knew existed before. Having spent my whole life and lived my whole life here in Southern California, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I wanted to see a different part of the country. I wanted to see what a real winter was like. I had never seen snow. I wanted to see what that was like. So I decided to get out of my comfort zone and went back east. I got my bachelor's degree in political science from the George Washington University. And because the Navy paid for my education, I went right back into the Navy. And I spent 10 years serving my country as a supply officer in the United States Navy. It was an incredible experience. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about responsibility. And I used that time to really continuing to improve myself. I earned an MBA while I was in the Navy. And then later on, I would use my GI Bill to earn another master's degree in urban education. But I had met my wife, and I always say my wife wasn't really Navy material. She wasn't going to follow me around the world from duty station to duty station. And so I made the decision to get out. And when we were living here in Southern California, I was kind of missing that commitment to service, of giving back. So I got more involved in my church. I started to speak to kids about the importance of education, why they needed to stay in school. And then one day, while me and my wife were driving to dinner, just had what was nothing more than a simple, playful conversation. And she asked me, if you ever won the lottery, what would you want to do? Well, I told her I would want to start a foundation where we could focus on kids from underserved communities and give them that same opportunity through education that I had. Well, I always say God was listening to us that day, because 2 weeks later, we actually won the lottery. Who knew it was that simple, right? So we both looked at each other and said, well, now we have to start that foundation. So that was 8 years ago, and for 8 years, we've been running the Gilbert and Jackie Cisneros Foundation, where we've been supporting college scholarships, college access programs. We give books to kindergartners so they can develop a love of reading. We support math education in elementary schools. And we love the work that we do because we know it's changing lives, not only for the students that we're working with now, but for future generations. Their children are going to have a better life because of what we're doing with these kids now. And it doesn't matter what happens in this election, me and my wife are going to continue to do that work because we know how important it is. But then, like all of you, November 2016 happened, and we were devastated. Me and my wife already had our ticket booked, hotel room was booked. We were going to watch the first woman president get sworn in. We were going to go see history, and then we ended up with this idiot we have right now. So we were angry. We wanted to know, what could we do? Just like you were asking. How can we get more involved? What can we do? And people started talking to me, well, maybe you should think about running for Congress. And so I sat down with my wife, and we talked about a lot of the issues that are important to us, like education, immigration reform, healthcare, common sense gun legislation, protecting our environment. Right then and there, I knew I needed to run for Congress. You know, my district has changed dramatically. Ed Royce saw the writing on the wall. This district, nobody would have thought 10 years ago that Orange County could be Democratic. But this district has changed so much. It's now a minority-majority district with a large Latino population, a large Asian population. Democrats are equal to the number of Republicans in this district. The orange curtain is coming down. It's coming down. And we're putting up a big blue canopy that's going to stretch not only over the 39th, but the entirety of Orange County, because that's what the people want. They want somebody who's going to give them the representation that they haven't had in decades. Ed Royce, the current incumbent, who saw the writing on the wall, hasn't done a town hall in 10 years. He's not out in the community. He spends most of his time in D.C. He's not out there talking to the constituents. He's not returning their letters. He's not taking their phone calls. And the person I'm running against, Young Kim, worked for him for 25 years, was in charge of those constituent services. And so the people are ready for change. They want someone who's going to represent them. They want somebody who's going to hold the president accountable, because, like I said, he's pretty much acting like an idiot right now and just running amok, and we need to do something different. So we're going to flip this seat. We're going to take back the House. We're going to restore sanity back to government, and we're going to get government working for working class people again, because that's what they want and that's what we need. And this country has always been great, and it's going to continue to be great. So let's go out and win this thing. Get out, get motivated. Go knock on your doors. Go phone makers. Let's make this happen. So thank you very much.
The next candidate is running along the coast of Orange County. Harley Rouda is a great candidate for this district. He is a business person. He's created a lot of jobs. He also is the beneficiary of running against a crazy person. His opponent is Dana Rohrabacher, and Harley Rouda is slightly ahead right now. With your help and support, we'll bring him along the finish line. So Harley, I want you to come on up.
Hi everyone, Harley Rouda. Yes, I am running against Dana Rohrabacher, as we affectionately call him. Like you, November 2016 was a wake-up call. I'm fairly sure that many of you were not this engaged in the political process prior to Donald Trump becoming president. And the same is true for me. My work prior to deciding to run was working with early stage companies, the publicly traded companies on the board, although my wife would call it board work, B-O-R-E-D, and wanted to get me out of the house and pursue this. And I'll tell you a true story. I went to the godfather of Democratic politics in Orange County, because the last thing I wanted to do was run if they had somebody on the bench ready to take on the challenge of defeating Dana Rohrabacher. And I know you know him very well, Frank Barbero. And I meet with Frank Barbero, took a knee, kissed the ring, and then shared with him, why I think I could beat Dana Rohrabacher. And he said, you know what, you do match the district. You've got a background in law, you've built businesses in this district, you could possibly win this. And he said, there's another reason you might win. And I said, might win. Okay, why is that, Frank? He said, because you look like a Republican. So in Orange County, that makes a difference. So in Orange County, the 48th district represents 80% of the coastline of Orange County. And Dana Rohrabacher has been there for 30 years. And in 30 years, he has authored 3 pieces of legislation. 30 years, 3 pieces of legislation, most recently 14 years ago. In the almost 200 bills he submitted, almost half of them, he is the only sponsor of the legislation. He couldn't find one other Republican to add their name to the things that he was submitting. So the differences between Dana Rohrabacher and myself are very broad and deep. Dana Rohrabacher supports offshore drilling and says the rigs are good for fish. I do not support offshore drilling. Dana Rohrabacher believes that climate change is a global fraud He's even said it was caused by dinosaur flatulence in past cycles. And I recognize that climate change is the greatest issue facing humanity and that we have to address it. It's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity because whoever takes on the challenge is going to create new industries, new clean tech, clean energy industries, and create tens of thousands of jobs while making our world a better place. So it's a huge opportunity, especially right here in Southern California. Dana Rohrabacher has gone on record as saying that homelessness is a lifestyle issue. And my wife and I started a shelter for homeless families when we were in our 20s. Because back then they would send the men and the older boys to the men's shelter, and the women and the younger kids to the women's shelter, when all they have left is each other. And just as we know it's not right to separate families that are homeless, it's not right to separate families at the border. Dana Rohrabacher recently said that homeowners should not have to sell their homes to gays and lesbians if they don't want to. I, on the other hand, have made a commitment to the first piece of legislation I'm going to add my name to is the Equality Act, because I can't think of a better way to give a proverbial middle finger to Dana Rohrabacher and Donald Trump than to show the women to stand up. Dana Rohrabacher is on record of supporting the training and arming of high school students with a limited number of loaded weapons on the campus in the event of gun violence. Yes. It's actually worse than that. He was caught on This Is America supporting the idea of kindergartners, middle schoolers, and high schoolers. And this was the infamous kindergartens segment. He backtracked and said I wasn't talking about kindergartners and middle schoolers, only high schoolers. I believe what California has done to address gun violence is what we need on a national level, and that is 10-day waiting periods, background checks for everyone, a ban on assault rifles, a ban on high-capacity magazines, closing the boyfriend loophole. These are all common sense types of legislation that we need across the United States to address gun violence, which is an epidemic. But of all these issues, there's one issue that frustrates me the most because it's emblematic of what's wrong with the Republican Party right now. A few weeks ago, Dana Rohrabacher was on TV with Fox News, and he made the commitment, the statement, that Attorney General Jeff Sessions should resign, and should resign immediately because he's not loyal to President Trump. Now think about that. We don't take an oath when in office or running for office. All these candidates and myself up here took an oath. And that oath is not to the President of the United States of America. That oath is to the Constitution of the United States of America that starts off with "we the people," and that means everyone, not the President of the United States. And I truly believe, I'm going to be very serious here, I truly believe our democracy is under attack, that the foundations of our republic are being chipped away by those that don't hold the best interest of our country at hand. And while I expect foreign adversaries to take shots at our democracy, because that is geopolitics as it has always been, I do not expect our elected leaders to not fight back, or worse, turn a blind eye, or worse, be involved. So this election, you guys have heard so many times, this is the most important election in our lifetimes. And I believe that. Every time in our country's history, from the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812 to the Civil War to the two great wars to the Korean War, the Vietnam War, to the women's movement, to the civil rights movement, every time our country was under attack and our democracy was under risk, it took brave people like you to stand up and say enough's enough, I'm going to be engaged, I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to be the change I want to see. And I know that if we continue to fight hard and do this, we can bring back the democracy that we believe in, that we love, and be true patriots for our country. Thank you.
So the next candidate's district has Irvine, which is very important to me because my parents live there. Katie Porter is running against Mimi Walters, and Katie is an amazing candidate. So I'm very pleased that in my district, I call one of my constituents, Kamala Harris, and her husband, Doug. And Doug was here earlier tonight. So Kamala appointed, oh, Doug is still here. Thank you, Doug. So Kamala Harris appointed Katie Porter as a foreclosure monitor during the whole crisis with all the foreclosures. And Katie did an outstanding, amazing job. She really understands what middle class folks went through during the recession. She is slightly ahead in this district, and with your help and support, she's going to win. So come on up.
I'm Katie Porter. Many people still think I'm running against Maxine Waters. I am not. I am running against the worst Republican that you have not had the opportunity to hear about yet. Her name is Mimi Walters. This Orange County district has the cities of Tustin and Irvine, Mission Viejo. It is 38% Republican, and Hillary won the district by 5 points. Given those facts, you might wonder how Mimi Walters got elected. She performed a gymnastic feat. She fell straight uphill and face planted right into Congress. And we can never let that happen again. When I win this seat in November, you're just getting it, I like it. When I win this seat in November, it will be represented by a Democrat for the first time in 90 years. I'm a consumer advocate and a law professor at UC Irvine. I'm also a mom to 3 very lightly supervised children. I am also the mother figure to 8 undersupervised red to blue candidates. Harley may win because he looks like a Republican. I'm going to win because I look like a mom. I spent my career helping families who were cheated by predatory lenders or by big banks. I did one of the first studies that showed that the big banks were in fact breaking the law. When I was a young professor and I gathered research, thousands and thousands of federal court cases. And I remember the first time I presented that research, it was in a room nothing like this. It was in a drab, horrible hotel conference room. And I was standing there, and this is known as continuing legal education, which for lawyers is known as reading the paper. And I have my slides, and I have graphs, and I painstakingly built the case showing that our largest banks walked into federal court, broke the law half the time, and got away with it. I finish my talk, and I say, questions? In the room, it's just like this. It's totally silent. And then one guy way at the back, wearing a suit that cost more than my mortgage, stood up and he said, "Young lady, Wells Fargo does not make mistakes." And I thought about that comment so many times over the years that I worked on behalf of the people of California at the request of our then Attorney General Kamala Harris as the foreclosure prevention monitor. Our race is going very well, but there is a special circle of hell reserved for candidates who take on Republican lackeys like Mimi Walters. And that circle of hell is called the margin of error. That is where I am in the polls, and without your help tonight, without your donations, without your energy, without your door knocking, we won't win this race. Today, I had always thought that the old Republicans, and we've seen a lot of them on TV lately, were pretty bad. Today I learned that a group called the New Republicans, what horror can this be, dropped $960,000 on cable TV today. So your support tonight is the perfect antidote to what has been an otherwise rough day on the campaign trail for me. I spent my career fighting and winning against big banks. This fall, I survived a burst appendix, and in 2019, I will be fearless against Donald Trump. Thank you so much.
Before I introduce the last candidate, I want to thank some of the staff that helped put this together tonight. Rika Rodman, Cassidy Carroll, and Janelle Booth. So in introducing Mike Levin, let me explain to you the difference between primary elections and general elections in terms of turnout. So historically, when you look at a primary election in California, Democrats performed less well than Republicans. In the general, we catch up. So there's usually a 6% or so gain from the primary to the general. Most of these candidates behind me, their Republican opponents only won by 51, 52, or 53%. If this historical shift happens, they all win their races. Except for Mike Levin's district. In his district, there were flat out more Democrats that turned out than Republicans. So all we have to do is get those same Democrats to turn out, he wins. Mike Levin, explain to you.
Well, I want to start just by thanking the Wassermans for opening their extraordinary home. Thank you so much. This is an amazing event, over $600,000, and I want to thank Congressmember Liu for helping to raise us over $1 million in the home stretch. We've done, what, about half a dozen of these events, and it means only four, okay, all right. Well, we see those checks. We've gotten more than 4 checks, I think. So I'm just incredibly honored that you're all spending part of your time helping all of us get elected. My district for the last 18 years has been represented by a guy named Darrell Issa. You probably heard of Darrell Issa. He decided to quit, and that's a good thing. But there's someone running in his place, a woman named Diane Harkey, who, if you can believe it, is to the right of Darrell Issa. And she is a full Trump candidate. A lot of folks here, I think Devin Nunes is a full Trump candidate, but a lot of folks here aren't admitting, their opponents aren't admitting whether they support Trump or not. Some of them are hiding altogether from Trump. My opponent embraces Trump, and even recently had Eric Trump visit our district. And she told Breitbart, this is pretty incredible, she doesn't even like the state of California, folks. She told Breitbart recently that if Democrats retake the House, quote, it'll be like California all over the nation. She said that. And that's a pretty odd thing to say if you're running for office in California, don't you think? I happen to love California. I was born here, raised here, and I've been an environmental attorney and a clean energy advocate working on clean energy policies here in the state of California. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you cannot protect the environment and grow the economy at the same time, because we've done it here. And I helped to start the trade association for the clean energy industry in Orange County, which is still running strong. We've got to create those great jobs of the future, not just in clean tech, but in biotech, life sciences. The innovation economy is alive and well. I have never been prouder to be a Californian, because we innovate, because we protect our environment. Right now we've got an environmental protection agency that doesn't even believe in environmental protection. I have an opponent who says, well, I'm not a scientist. Well, when you are running for Congress, you don't have the luxury of being so ignorant and uninformed. When 98% of the scientists know that the climate is changing. Anybody that read the IPCC report, who read that report or at least saw the stories? You know this is happening. We've got about 15 years to fix this problem. And I grew up in Southern California. Who here grew up in Southern California? You remember the smog alerts that we always used to have, where you had to stay inside because it was too smoggy to go play? I remember this as a kid. And I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, my wife and I, and we are not going back to those days. And when you look at what the EPA is doing today, they are trying to bring back things like asbestos in buildings. Have you seen this? This is real. You can Google it. Mercury, lead paint, nerve agent pesticides that are known carcinogens that cause cancer in children. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real. These are the stakes that we are facing right now. And clean air and clean water, I am convinced, in a district like mine, that is all coastal, 52 miles of coast, from Dana Point all the way down to UC San Diego. I'm convinced in a district like mine, in a district like Harley's, along the California coast, these issues matter and they are not partisan. I know we can win when we fight for a cleaner environment. Don't you think we can win when we fight for a cleaner environment? That's not all we're fighting for. We're fighting for health care that's affordable and accessible. We're fighting for a return to our basic values. Decency, treating people with respect, Think about our dreamers. We can't even get the DREAM Act passed. 85% of the country wants to see a path to citizenship for dreamers. The Republicans in Congress can't even get that right, even though it would pass today if it was introduced. The DREAM Act would pass, but Paul Ryan won't let his side even argue for it because he doesn't have half of his caucus, the so-called Hastert rule. You put Democrats in charge, we're going to pass that DREAM Act. You put Democrats in charge, we're going to stand up to this president. We're going to do things the right way, the American way. What made America great in the first place is respecting and appreciating one another, not tolerating one another, but celebrating our diversity, regardless of our country of origin, our race, our religion, our gender identity, or sexual orientation. That is what made America great in the first place. That's what's at stake in 22 days, and that's why we need your help. So here's the thing I'll say in closing. 2 years ago, almost to the day, I was at the third presidential debate in Las Vegas between Hillary and Donald Trump. Many of you worked very, very hard on Hillary's campaign. And I thought, as I flew back from that, there's no way we could lose. I thought Hillary wiped the floor with Trump in all the debates. She was ahead in all the polls. Everything looked great. So I got a little bit complacent. And I don't regret much in life, but I regret that. I didn't go to Michigan. I didn't go to Florida. I didn't go to Wisconsin because I didn't think I had to. And I can't turn back the clock 2 years. But I can control what I do over the next 3 weeks, and so can you. So that's why I'm asking each and every one of you, let's do everything we can for these next 3 weeks. Let's get out of our comfort zones. The streets of Los Angeles should be empty. If you're a Democrat, no offense, I think this is, whose district is this? Your district? He's going to win, okay? He's going to vote absentee. I'm not saying don't vote. Vote absentee for Congressmember Lou. But then go knock on doors in Katie Hill's district, or Katie Porter's district, or Andrew Kansas district, or TJ Cox's district, or Harley Rutter's district, or Gil's, or Jessica's, or mine. I've got beautiful beaches down in San Diego. They're really great. But do something. Don't wake up the morning after the election and regret that we didn't give it everything we had. Let's go take back our country.
Yes, please do not walk precincts for me. Okay. One of these candidates amazing. Let's give them all another big Let me just thank again the 8 people that put this together. Elsa Collins, Susie Schuster, Chrisette Hudlin, Lauren Sanchez, Laura Schell, Dana Walden, Laura Wasser, and Laura Wasser. Thank you so much. So I'm going to conclude by telling you the difference between a midterm and a presidential. So in a presidential election, all the oxygen and media goes to 2 presidential candidates. In a midterm, we can run 100 unique congressional races if we have the resources. So Mike Levin can talk about the environment, and TJ Cox is going to talk about tariffs and how it's hurting farmers. So if you give them resources, they can localize these races. If you localize the races, much higher chance of us winning. So for those of you who have helped out, this is what you're going to do. You're going to help them win. Thank you for doing that. And let me give it back to Laura Wasserman.
I don't want to keep you guys, I don't know about you, but I'm so energized by this. It's been something we've been thinking about all year. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you everybody here for coming, and if you're not maxed out, give more, please. We're counting on you.